If you go into an offer and in your first 30 days, okay, you bring in a new sales team, you bring in new setters, you organize the pipeline, and you raise the price, I pretty much guarantee you are going to scale their company within those 30 days without a doubt. The second month, month number 2, you guys are going to reap a shit ton of rewards. That shit's going to scale hard. This is really the system right here. This is all you need. You do this correctly, you're going to scale within 90 days fast. Over here is going to be basically going to be the bad, and over here is going to be the good, okay? That's how we're going to do that. So on the bad side here, okay, what you're going to run into is usually going to be 3 things. There might be 10 things. You just don't know. You might be walking into a disaster. I'm looking to work with companies that anywhere between $20,000 to $50,000 a month. And when that happens, and I'm looking to take them from there to multiple 6 figures a month, what's normally the case is really shit sales systems and processes where leads are getting fucking all over the place and displaced, and a mix with just low quality closers or low quality in work ethic or low standards or all of the above of what I just said. So not in any particular order. The first thing is we'll just talk about the things that are bringing in the revenue, which is sales, okay? Again, marketing, lead flow, stuff like that, of course, that's a big issue, but we're gonna be talking about specifically the sales side, not the lead flow, okay? The lead flow and worrying about that quality and the amount that's coming in, that's for a different video. That's for you to figure out before you ever step into this offer. This is assuming first 30 days, bad stuff, you're gonna have to unravel the things that are happening. The closers, okay, are usually one of these 2 things. Either going to be underpaid, which means talent's been absolutely wasted, or overpaid, but for a low standard. Now, I'm gonna give you the action to this. In fact, I think that would be better. Okay, so the closers are either gonna be underpaid, but they're really good performers, or they could have been, or they're overpaid and they're low standards. So what is your solution? You're gonna fire them. Now, I know that sounds like aggressive. It's like, yo, wait, but what if you can go in there and train them, whatever. We don't have time for that. You're a growth operator, not a nice guy. Your job is to scale this company and do the things that the freaking mentor or whoever was in charge of it didn't have the balls to do or didn't have the knowledge to do, or both, okay? You need to fire them. Why? Because let's take this person here, okay? Let's say they were underpaid. 2 things happen. 1, low motivation, and that low motivation does really 2 major things. 1, it lowers their standard of what they're performing in sales, but 2, I'm gonna talk about this later, but I guarantee you that pipeline is freaking clogged. They're not gonna do the little things and low-key big things that make sales drive and flow if they are not motivated, and they're no longer motivated because they've been underpaid and undervalued. And honestly, if they knew what was even good for them and they were even actually a good closer and they wanted to rock it out, they would have left this offer a long time ago. So in the end of the day, you're trying to teach an old dog a new tricks, and in this business and talking about sales, fuck that, okay? We are here to implement. Now, this person overpaid for a low standard. Obviously, we're firing that motherfucker. I don't care, by the way, what the mentor has to say. I don't care if they're like, yo, I really like this guy, this is my boy, or whatever, yeti. I don't care. They brought you in for a reason, and you need to have the balls to be able to do what's necessary to scale, because you want to make money and they want to make money. And they're not going to give you a testimonial if you don't help them scale. They're not going to pay you if you don't scale. And it is your job. It is your job to be the bad guy sometimes. So the second you have a lower, and remember this is very important. The moment you lower your tolerance for anything other than A players is the moment you're gonna start making more money. And it is your job to bring in A players and scale this motherfucking company. And these people here are no longer A players. So you're gonna fire these closers, you're gonna bring in a new sales team. All right, so next problem that you're gonna run into, okay, is the setters. And you're probably, and I'm gonna be talking about on the setters here, we'll do both pipeline and DM setters, assuming that this is like the case. So they have a pipeline and DM setters that they're dealing with. Okay, so what's happening with these guys is simply the same thing, usually, is where the standard is really, really low, okay? But with the pipeline, with these guys, it's a little bit more obvious, right? What you're gonna find when they step in is low quality phone calls as in they're not even that well trained, or they don't really give a shit on the call, or, which is going to be the most common, low number of calls even made. This is given that they have one. This is assuming that they even have a pipeline leader or a pipeline dialer, okay? The next one is going to be assembly. What does that mean? Well, let's say a person is in the, let's say they're in the setter pipeline or whatever, or the dialer's going in and they're following up with them, and the person doesn't answer. Well, they need to move that person to like a no answer column. And so, I mean, I'll talk about this a little bit later, but another problem that we're going to talk about is the actual pipeline itself, how it's set up, how it's ran, how it's flowing. Right now, we're talking about setters, pipeline setters and DM setters. So when I say the assembly, what I mean is like the organization inside the pipeline. Are they really actually organizing everything, doing that correctly to where they are? You're going to find that they usually are not. And then the last one, there's probably more that I could go into with this, is communication. They're probably not leaving the level of notes that are inside of this offer that they should be. So you're gonna have to clean up all this. So what is the solution? Solution is two things, okay? And if you're like, dude, you're an idiot, you don't even know, like you have the same answer to everything, I promise you things get a little bit more interesting. But solution number one, you're gonna fire them, okay? I still recommend you do this. Could you train them and do that? Sure, if you freaking feel like it. But you're a growth operator. Again, your job is not to hire. Your job is really not training people. Your job is not trying to make people improve. I mean, there's merit to it. There's things you could talk about with it. But your job is to put the right people in place, write the systems in place, and make this thing scale. Okay, so usually I would just fire and replace them and implement a higher standard with clear communication of what is required. Because trust me, what's going to happen, listen to me right now, is if you do not fire them, and this goes for the closers as well, if you do not fire these people and you bring in A players with C players, usually these C players don't become A players. What happens is the A players become B players. And the C players stay C players. Because the A players are like, oh wow, these C players are getting away with this. And instead of being like, I don't care, I'm not going to hold that, I'm going to hold my standard, I'm going to do my thing, they're going to drop their value. And the ones who do say, I don't care, I'm going to hold my standard, guess what they're going to do? They're going to quit, they're going to leave, they're going to go into a better offer. So C players make A players become B players. A players don't make C players become A players. That's not how it works. There are A, Bs, and Cs in life. I don't know why. I don't know who they are. I just know that they're there, okay? Don't mix them. Focus on the A players. Fire them, bring in A players, set a high standard for them, and get to work. So now you fire them, bring in some new players, and you're going to just raise the standard. And so one of the biggest problems that you're solving here when it comes to the pipeline is going to be what's a clogged pipeline. So what's happening is it's clogged. There's no lead flow. And what you need to understand about a pipeline is this is how a pipeline is supposed to look. Let's pretend this is the ocean. This ocean here, this is ocean number one. This is going to be your calendar. This is the closer calendar, okay? This is your closer's calendar, okay? Ocean number two, where is that? Same thing. That is actually going to be the closer's calendar as well. So what is the middle? What is this middle here that's happening? That was supposed to be blue, but I guess we're doing green now. That's fine. What is this middle? Okay. This middle is the pipeline. Okay, and so the way a pipeline is supposed to be flowing like water. Things from one ocean flow into that stream leading to another big body of water. But really what these two bodies of water are going to be the calendars for the closers, okay? Now what happens for most people is this isn't flowing. This is actually getting stuck somewhere around here. There's a dam or there's a drought in your river. And the reason why is because dialers are not actually organizing or calling people correctly. The closers aren't even organizing it correctly or following through on their follow-ups on the front end either or on the back end either, okay? And you don't have any systems. This pipeline is a complete shit show and it's clogged. And if you have a clogged pipeline, you're not going to make money. And then what's worse is you're going to be basically losing a shit ton of potential money on the organic side, but especially on the ad side. The ad spot, when you're spending money on ads and you have a bunch of these ad leads coming into the pipeline, if they're not being nurtured, you're losing so much money. And statistically, only 20 to maybe 30% of sales are done on the first call close. So between organic and ads, you're going to be making more money in the follow-up, but you're not going to be making any money if that's not getting done correctly. And there's so many things we could talk about on another video when it comes to retargeting campaigns and email campaigns and automations for text messages and blasts, etc. But right now, again, we're just talking about sales in your first 30 days, okay? I was going to make this into a 90-day video breakdown, but I think it's probably going to have to be for another video. Okay, so let's actually talk about that now. The next thing that you're going to run into as a problem here is going to be the pipeline. Now, I did a pretty damn good job of explaining what's wrong with it right there, I'd say. So this is going to be the problem. This is going to be the solution. Okay, so I basically just explained everything. So one is it's clogged. Why is it clogged? Well, because the dialers are not actually doing what they're supposed to be doing and organizing it correctly. Two, there's no notes, which means there's no communication happening, so nobody knows who's actually spoken to this person last, where do they come from, where are they going, etc. Clogged, no notes, there's no progression. And so let's say like lack of tabs, and this kind of goes into organization. So I would say not enough actual pipeline. So instead of like, let's say you're using GHL, I'll give you an example of the solution over here, okay? So say we'll actually do like pipeline / opportunities. This stands for opportunities. So this is what you're seeing inside of here, and this is gonna be costing you a shit ton of money. So when it comes over to the solution side of what you're doing with this pipeline, aside from, again, firing and hiring new people, now I'm going to go into how do you actually organize your pipeline to make sure it's going to be making enough money for you and flowing well, okay? I use GHL a lot, but when you're using these pipelines, you're going to have, one is you're going to be your closers pipelines, and I'll go into the tabs or the opportunities tabs that you're going to have to organize them. So first one's going to be your closers, and then you can just keep it simple, actually. I like doing a own deals pipeline so people are closed, and then going into setter. So this is what's really important. When they're in the closers pipeline, okay, this is what people don't do, right? So you have your closers, you have your setters, and you have your deals. We're not really gonna talk about the deals. These are people who already closed, okay? If they're in the closers pipeline for longer than 2 weeks, they're gonna get moved immediately into the setter pipeline for your dialers to call them. This is how you keep a good flow, okay? Because at the end of the day, if you have a good lead flow on the front end, your closers are gonna get backed up anyways, not be able to follow up with everyone, okay? And now, yes, it's their job, but that's just natural way of things, okay? We can't help that. So you're gonna go ahead and you're going to move this person and do a simple automation that takes that person after 2 weeks and moves them into the setter pipeline for your setter to dial. Okay, this already is bringing in a way better flow inside of your system, and that's it. And then obviously the setter's job is to go ahead and get them back onto the calendar, and then from there, your calendar job is to close the deal, okay? Simple little flow there, but going into the actual pipeline, I keep my tabs very simple. For the closers, you can do it any way you want to, but I'm gonna go into this for you, even though this is really kind of like, yeah, whatever, we'll do it. So let's say this is the closer pipeline, simple, opt-in, tab, you're gonna have a unqualified tab, you're just gonna have a F1 tab. This is their first level of follow-up, okay? So they didn't close, follow-up, F1 tab. After this tab, you're gonna have F1, F2, F3. They should be being moved through here within the next 2 weeks. After 2 weeks is done, what happens? They get moved into the center pipeline like I just got done talking about, okay? So that's how that's gonna work. From there, they're gonna also have so they're gonna have the opt-in, unqualified, follow-up pipeline. Then of course, they can have their dead pipeline, sure. And I like doing a reactivation pipeline. But the reactivation is gonna be mainly for the setter pipeline. So I keep it very simple. That's it. That's all you need. You could do a reschedule one, but honestly, I don't even think you need to reschedule. If they rescheduled for another call, they're just going to stay inside the opt-in. What's really important is that your closers are actually organizing this correctly, or anybody who's managing the pipeline. Now, from there, I'm going to talk about the setter pipeline because this one's a little bit more nuanced. Most of it is simple, but I'm going to go over, everybody already knows you have unqualified, disqualified, dead. I'm going to go over the pipelines that most people don't think about. First one's going to be opt-in, no book. Okay, so they put in their information, but they didn't book it. This is where a lot of leads are hidden in terms of you making money. The other one is going to be opt-in DQ. Now, most people have a simple booking page for leads to come into in order to see if they're disqualified, and then if they're not disqualified, they don't get to book a call. And then so many people do not reach back out to these individuals. We just closed a deal type shit. We just closed a deal 5 minutes ago because one of my closers had, was it 5K?
5K.
One of my closers paid a 5K deal, closed a 5K deal literally 1 minute ago, okay, from an opt-in disqualified. So they came in, they didn't fill in, they lied about their information, saying that they had less money than they did. Our dialer went in, called them, realized they actually had the money once we built up some rapport, put them on the calendar. My girl Leia closed it, deal's done. This is where these two right here, so a lot of coaches and mentors and stuff like that don't ever think about this. A lot of growth operators don't have this in their system. This is where a shit ton of money is falling through the cracks. Again, all the other stuff is normal. Opt-in, disqualified, qualified, whatever, confirmed. It doesn't freaking matter. But these two right here, opt-in, no book, so they put in their information, but something stopped them from actually booking a call, or opt-in, disqualified. If you don't have a dialer specifically targeting these guys, you're losing a shit ton of money. Okay, so that's another thing. So we've talked about the closers, we talked about the setters, and now we just talked about the pipeline. The last problem that people are gonna have, or we're just gonna keep this one very simple, is you need to raise the price, okay? Most coaches have no idea how to price shit, and they undervalue what they're giving to the people 9 times out of 10. At least a good coach is. I like to see that. I like to see a coach, most of the coaches I've ever worked with have completely undervalued themselves, giving them price points for, and this is a big mistake, coaches try pricing their programs on what anybody can afford. And that's not how you're supposed to do this. You're not supposed to price a program based on what people can afford. You're supposed to price the program on a number that makes you happy. And then you fill up that number with a shit ton of value to where the customer feels stupid saying no to it. And if you are unsuccessful in being able to make value at a price that makes you smile, then you do have to lower the price. But if you can figure out a way to stack and add value to a price that makes you smile, that's how you price your program. And then what's gonna happen is when you price a program that way, it forces your marketing to do better to attract leads that can actually afford that price. And this is one of the main reasons as well as to why I'm firing the coaches, okay? Or I'm firing the closers in the beginning. The reason why is because they're used to this price, they're used to this standard, they're used to this offer. Well, we come in, we create a new offer, give more value, raise price, raise standard, and most old dogs cannot learn those types of new tricks. And they're basically B or C players anyways by the time you step in there. So the last thing is you're gonna raise the price. If you go into an offer and in your first 30 days, okay, you bring in a new sales team, you bring in new setters, you organize the pipeline, and you raise the price, I pretty much guarantee you are going to scale their company within those 30 days without a doubt. The second month, month number 2, you guys are gonna reap a shit ton of rewards. That shit's gonna scale hard. This is really the system right here. This is all you need. I could have made the video, it's just this last piece here, and that would have been it. Okay, you do this correctly, you're gonna scale within 90 days fast. I'm gonna talk about the next 60 and 90 days in another video, but this is your first 30. Do that shit, make a shit ton of money.